Hey everybody, this is Joe Langworthy and Thomas Woelfel with episode 30 of Tailgate Talk, a six-column sports podcast. And we are only going to do one this week. Life kind of got in the way of doing a review episode and a preview episode, but it's homecoming week. Everybody's busy here in Columbia. I don't think anybody ever does anything in Charleston, South Carolina. So I don't know what your excuse was, Thomas, but
hey, I was the one ready to go.
You were.
You can't put that
Thomas.
on me.
Thomas was ready to go last night, and I texted him about 9:45 and said, "Hey, I forgot we were doing this, so I'm in bed already." But I got a good night's sleep, and so I'm ready to talk. So, So that Kentucky game. How did you feel after the first quarter?
Not good at all. I was with some buddies actually out at a bar here in Charleston, and I was ready to maybe have a couple more drinks and not watch any more football before I got too upset with how things were going.
Right.
So we came out obviously, and I don't want to say the team wasn't. I don't know. It just took them a while to get going, and after the first couple drives, obviously down 14-0, you're sitting there thinking, this could get out of hand quick because their fans were in it. Obviously, their team came out ready to go, and you kind of start to hope that maybe it doesn't turn into a blowout. I think that was kind of the risk we were running. Of course, heading into the second quarter. What were you thinking?
I was ready to jump off a bridge.
What?
No, I mean it was.
Hey, before you do that, just call me.
Right. No, that was not serious. That was a joke. Football is not that important, guys. But yeah, it was rough. I was thinking there's got to be something else on I can watch. I was pretty close to turning it off. And I literally did go start cooking dinner and, had the game on and was kind of watching it. But, I remember looking up and thinking, am I doing this math right? That would only be a 56-yard field goal.
Mm-hmm.
He's hit a 61-yard field goal. Why are we not taking the points?
Right.
And then I was like, are we going to fake it here? And then he took the snap and started throwing it. And I was like, yes, we are. And, my inclination, I don't remember what the yardage was on that fourth down.
It was not short.
It was not short, but it wasn't 47 yards or whatever. And I was just kind of like, why are we throwing it deep? Just get the first down, you morons. And then he caught it and scored a touchdown. I was like, all right.
Just how you drew it up.
We're back. And, I was, as down as I was after the first quarter, I was that elated during the second quarter. And then we came out and only scored a field goal. We stopped them, scored a field goal, and then they drove down the field and scored. And I was like, well,
might have a ball
right.
game. Yeah.
This is going to be a shootout, and I don't have the emotional capacity to deal with this right now. But then, and there was on that touchdown drive, that was the one where KAD had the interception and they called it back, right?
Correct. He had the interception. They called it back. Then obviously they marched down the field and ended up running it in for a touchdown. I think they ran it. Maybe it was a throw. I don't remember for sure. But yeah, they went right down the field after that and scored a touchdown. So,
right. That one, and we can talk about this more if you want, but one, I'm still convinced that was an interception.
Mm-hmm. I don't see how you can overturn it.
I don't see how you overturn that, at least. Yeah. And two, it was in the moment very discouraging when that got overturned and the defense immediately let up a score. You're kind of like, well, defense isn't responding again. And, in that moment was thinking, oh, I hope we don't, fall apart.
Right.
um, just let them score at will again, like they did the first two drives. But obviously, every every unit on the team really put together a complete game, and if you take away the first quarter, really put together a complete game and dominated, and you know,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's kind of funny. Like we mentioned on the last podcast. Obviously, I worked at Kentucky for a while, and so this week I kind of listened to a couple of their radio shows just to see, kind of get the other side of that game. And I mean,
mm,
kind of a couple interesting notes I've heard. One, it sounds like Coach Stoops was running down the sideline trying to get their players to know that it was going to be fake. So it seems like everybody in the country knew that it was going to be a fake punt, with the exception of, um, the dudes on the field. So that's, why you don't take a timeout there, I don't know. Um, but I think that was turning point number one.
mm-hmm,
And obviously, that's a little bit coach driven. I'm sure he felt like they needed a spark, and that was going to be kind of their opportunity to do it. But then, again, you run into adversity there in the third quarter. You just taken I think, a 6 point lead, and I really thought that was an interception. It's tough, especially after they overturn it. They
mm-hmm,
march down the field and score, and the team responded again. And kind of one thing that stuck out to me based on what I've heard from the Kentucky side is, um, the Mizzou team. They said reminded them of a Mark Stoops team from 4 or 5, 6 years ago, where they just we kept plugging away. We were down
mm-hmm.
by 14. Obviously, we get the touchdown, and then we just kept plugging away. Next thing you know, we're up by 6. Um, the interception gets called back. They don't got to go down and score. Offense comes on, and they keep plugging away. And uh, you stick with it long enough, and obviously we have enough talent to beat a team like that. Next thing you know, you're up 17 with no time left. So
Right.
I think that was a big team win, and I think even Coach Drinkwitz mentioned he didn't know for sure how they would respond if they got down early in that game, given how we lost the last one against
Mm-hmm.
LSU. And he's got to like what he sees, and I think that that's a huge testament to the culture probably in that locker room that obviously the coaches want to have, but also locker rooms tend to be player driven. So obviously the players I think have a huge hand in that too, and how they responded to a couple tough times there and within that game.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I do remember seeing his comments that I think they even in that mini movie, I think they even played his like pregame speech, and he talked about starting
Mm-hmm.
fast in the pregame
Mm-hmm.
speech, and then it was kind of like,
Yep.
well, oh,
Well, I think
oh
they showed
well.
the half. They showed I think it was the post game speech, and he was like, "We said we were going to start fast," and he just looks around, and then he made a comment. And it was like, "Yep, there you go." So,
Yeah, yeah, but
but
it
he has to be
obviously.
excited about how they responded. I mean,
Mm-hmm,
that's a positive too. So,
mm-hmm. They took a punch and stayed standing, like you said. So, um, yeah, I think really big win. Obviously, we don't really know what it's actually going to mean, for the future, for the program. But it has, the Kentucky game has been kind of cursed. Um,
mm-hmm.
you know, I think I tweeted something to the effect of, "I don't believe in curses, but Mizzou was absolutely cursed against Kentucky
Right.
during the first quarter." And so to win that game, and to win that game in the way that they did, I think could get some of that negative mojo,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
negative juju
Mm-hmm.
turned around, because those games have been, yes, Kentucky's just dominated. They won 7 of the last 8 coming into this one, but they won it in weird ways a lot of the times. Some controversial calls.
Mm-hmm.
The pass interference call on the last play of the game here in Columbia a few
Yep.
years ago. That
Last year, the punt.
the punt, the
Mm-hmm.
roughing the punter, you know, 45
40
yards
yards behind
behind the line of
line of
scrimmage.
scrimmage.
Um,
Yeah.
and just a lot of missed calls, a lot of weird calls, and it seemed like there was still some of that. Kentucky got called for a lot of penalties, so I'm not going to say that the refs were biased or anything, but when they overturned that interception by KAD, you kind of had that thought of like,
here we go again. Yeah.
And then the team, then Kentucky scored, and you thought, oh, here we go again. But they responded and kind of broke the curse, So it had the feel to me. I don't know how you feel about this, but it had the feel to me of like a turning point win.
I think definitely a turning point. Definitely in the program, definitely in that series, and I think it was last year. One of our players said, I think Marcus Manuel maybe said he viewed Kentucky as a rivalry game, and they kind of laughed at him. But you see, at the end of the game, we're kicking their butts, and they were very chippy. Some would probably say on the verge of dirty in a number of different times, and I think that tells you that they might have acted like they didn't care, but obviously. Yeah, there was a lot of emotion in that game for them as well. And I mean, look, University of Missouri is not that much different from Kentucky in that, I feel from a Mizzou standpoint, there's no reason why, we can't win 8 games on a consistent basis. I'm not saying we have to win 10 or 12, but we should be winning 7 or 8 every single year, which is really where Kentucky has been the last 6 or 8 years. And, one thing we're going to have to do to get to that point is beat teams like Kentucky, like South Carolina on a regular basis to get to those 8 wins. So definitely felt like a turning point in that series. Obviously, the first time Drink, I think, has beaten Kentucky, maybe the COVID year. I don't remember for sure, but
I don't remember either.
Regardless, definitely the last 2 years, Kentucky has had their way with us, and it felt like you said, a change in, what is now the SEC East that is going away, but it felt like a kind of a changing of the tide, a changing of the guard from one program to the next. And I think that's a big thing for Missouri because once you get that first win, the next one becomes a lot easier against a team like that. So, definitely exciting. Definitely, I think, a clear sign that things are headed in the right direction in Columbia, Missouri, and something to be excited about.
Yeah, bowl eligible after 7 games. Obviously, when you do that, it changes your goals. When you're bowl eligible after 7 games, the goal is no longer bowl eligibility. You already accomplished that. So let's go get a good bowl.
Right.
We win this next week. You start thinking, okay, we've kind of moved past the lower level bowls already. Let's move up and start setting your sights even higher. And then every goal this team has is still accomplishable. Is still there. So I think it was Gabe said it would be very close to impossible for Mizzou to make the playoff. While I understand his logic, if we want to make the playoff, we still have that opportunity, and we just got to win the games.
Obviously it's difficult given we're going to have to beat a team that hasn't lost in now nearly 3 years. But I mean, everybody likes to say, hey, we want to be in the driver's seat. We want to control our own destiny. If you win out, then you're probably in the playoff. And obviously that's easy to say. You could say that at the beginning of the year. Hey, if we win every game this year, we'll be in the playoff. But, we're 7 weeks in. And we still can say, hey, if we win out, we're going to probably be in the playoffs. So, like you said, everything's in front of them. I mean, I think a lot of things are going to have to go our way, but it's obviously not off the table. So, to be this late in the year, if you'd asked me if this was something that we'd be looking at, I probably would have bet pretty heavily against it, to be honest with you, having only 1 loss 7 weeks in. But they've proven me wrong, and I think proven probably a lot of fans wrong too. So. They've got something to prove.
Right. I think you and I talked about it after the LSU game. I think both of us had them sitting at 5-2 after this game when we did our schedule, season game by game preview. And I think you had said K-State and LSU, and I think I had said LSU and Kentucky because,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yep.
I don't believe in curses, but I believed in that curse.
Right.
And so they've proven both of us wrong, and you know they they look good, and it's a lot of fun. So that kind of brings us to homecoming. Homecoming is this weekend. My office, I just took a new job downtown, um, right on Broadway. Van Matry. Anybody needs an attorney, hit us up. But they were the fraternities and sororities. I don't know who it was. Were out painting the windows. So um, you know that was downtown was hopping today. I was walking around at lunch a little bit and looked like just about every business in Columbia was getting something painted on the windows. So that's a clear sign of homecoming. House decks tomorrow night, parade at 9 a.m. Saturday, and then game at 2:30. So it's a fun time to be in Columbia, fun time to be a Tiger, and but it is going to be a tough test at the same time. So, what are your initial thoughts on South Carolina as we go into that game?
Well, I mean, first off, I agree with you. I mean, and it's a big game too. Let's not make any mistake about it. I mean, you're never going to say, "Hey, if we lose against South Carolina, the season's done." But it would kind of wipe out, I think, the kind of the effect of our victory last week if we were to stumble a little bit this week. But
Mm-hmm.
So I do think it's a big game. Our guys are going to have to be focused, and I almost look at South Carolina as a diet version of LSU. Their offense is very good. They've got a stud quarterback in Spencer Rattler, who's been extremely good this year. And they've got a receiver too, Xavier Leggett, I think is how you say his last name. He is going to be a little bit different than most of the receivers we've seen this year, just in that he's got a little bit of extra size. I think he's 6'2" or 6'3" and long. So he's going to be a little bit of a different challenge for our secondary. And then look, their offensive line for the first 3, 4, 5 weeks was hot garbage. I mean, they were, but the last couple of weeks they've kind of gotten their act together. I think their running back now has strung together 3 straight 100-yard rushing games. He's very similar to Cody Schrader. He was a Division II transfer. They didn't know exactly what they were getting, but he's really kind of turned it on the last couple of weeks, and the offense is really trending in the right direction. So our defense will have their hands full. Now, defensively, they struggle. They struggle to stop the run. They really struggle against the pass. And so our offense should definitely have an opportunity to, put up points and give us a chance to win. I think it's going to be very similar to the LSU game, just in, how it could potentially play out. But I do think that our defense should have better luck against the South Carolina offense that is very good, but I don't think they're quite in the elite category that LSU's is.
Right. Yeah, I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head, and you being from South Carolina probably know a lot more about the team than I do and hear a lot more about them. But, Spencer Rattler is a very good quarterback. I don't think he's elite by any means. I don't think anybody's, seeing him and thinking, he's a Heisman guy. But,
right.
He's good. I do think that, the only South Carolina game I've really watched was that North Carolina game to start the year. And like you said, I'm not sure if they had tried, the offensive line could have been much worse. I'm not sure if they had just stepped aside and said, have at it. North Carolina would have had many more sacks. Like, it was crazy how Swiss cheese like South Carolina's offensive line was. But then you've told me that they are getting better. So I do think that it's not just going to be a game where, like I originally thought, where Darius Robinson and Johnny Walker can just kind of they're going to get theirs. They're going to have to work, but I do still think, even though they've improved, it's probably a game where they can and should create some pressure. and force Spencer Rattler into some bad decisions. I do think that like I said, he's a good quarterback and he can really hurt you. But I do think that what he struggled with at Oklahoma, what he struggled with last year, and what I think he still has in him is he doesn't deal with pressure well. He can make mistakes. He can make bad decisions, and you kind of have to force him into that. And so that's where I would really be looking as like the main matchup there, the most important matchup is how our defense defends Spencer Rattler, whether we can get pressure on him, whether we can, create some confusion in the secondary for him where he doesn't really know where to look and create some turnovers. So, I think that's going to be a key to stopping their offense is getting them off rhythm.
Yep. And, that first game against North Carolina, I think they allowed 7 or 8 sacks.
I want to say it was 9.
It might have been 9.
I have 9 in my head for some reason.
That could be. I mean, the offensive line. I mean, they were more like turnstiles than anything else.
Right.
So it was unbelievable to watch. And that's a mobile quarterback too. Spencer Rattler is not a dude that, gets the snap and just stands there. He can move around a little bit, and they couldn't block anybody. I believe against Florida, maybe they allowed 4 sacks. So I say they've improved. Obviously, they've not been great to this point, but they have gotten some better. I know they've moved. I think there's 2 different offensive linemen that have started to get more playing time that have been a little more productive. But yeah, I mean, absolutely, we should be able to get pressure on him. Like you said, when he is rushed, he typically is very capable of making bad decisions, and we're just going to have to punish him when they do. But I mean, that being said, they put up 39 points against Florida last week, and so they're capable of scoring, but they're also capable of being stopped, and we're just going to have to do our part defensively. So,
right,
that's definitely something to keep an eye on is our defensive line and whether or not we can get pressure with 4, because if we can, that creates a big advantage for us. And then offensively for us, their secondary has struggled a lot. They've only really got 2 corners they feel comfortable playing. Obviously, with the depth we have at receiver, I think that should be a massive advantage for us. Obviously, Luther Burden might be the best receiver in the country, definitely top 2 or 3. But I also think Theo Weiss has started to come on. Mookie Cooper has started to play. And
Marquise
Johnson, who just got a touchdown pass, obviously, against Kentucky. I think we have a lot of depth at receiver, and that's going to be a massive opportunity for us just because it's a numbers game at that point, and they don't have enough in the secondary, I think, to cover the top receivers we have. So there's no reason if we come out ready to play, there's no reason why we don't win. But it's SEC football. Their kids are getting paid too in the NIL era, and they're going to come into Missouri. And one last kind of note I have here is just a reminder. I mean, last year I think the roles were 100% flipped. South Carolina was coming off a win at Texas A&M. It was their homecoming game here in Columbia, South Carolina. Missouri was struggling early in the year. And Missouri rolled into town and really dominated from start to finish that football game against South Carolina. So it's possible that, South Carolina could show up and do something similar to us if we're not ready to play.
Yeah, for sure. So it is a sellout. Sorry, I kind of had a brain fart there. It is a sellout. I do think that it's going to be a great environment. And so that would be my plea to everyone that's going to the game is be loud, get in Spencer Rattler's head. I think those are the kinds of things that can really help the defense. I think the players have even talked about that. Nobody playing at Mizzou right now has really ever experienced that before. You think about even the LSU game in 2020, it was COVID. So there was 10,000 people there. They were pumping in crowd noise. And we just really haven't had a environment like this like these last few games. And so they've talked about how great it is to play in front of a sold out crowd. And so I just think that we got to do our part as fans. Obviously, I think, I think sometimes people get a little too invested and a little too, we can actually change the outcome. I think there is a home field advantage. Obviously, I don't think we can win the game by ourselves, but we gotta be loud. We gotta do what we can to help the defense out and shut up when the offense is on the field.
Know your role, yeah,
Know your
and
role and shut
and
your mouth.
stay with it. I mean, I really think South Carolina. We haven't even talked about the issues they've had off the field. The fans over here are calling for the head of the defensive
Oh
coordinator.
yeah, broken foot for
The
the
head
head
coach,
coach. We didn't talk
yeah,
about that.
the head
Let's.
coach broke his own foot in frustration after the game. Not to mention the fact he gets in front of the press and starts chucking his own players under the bus.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got fans wanting the defensive coordinator fired. You've got the head coach with a broken foot and also basically blaming players, saying, "Hey, we called the perfect play and our dudes couldn't make it, and our dudes couldn't tackle anybody." And I
Right.
mean, this is a situation where if we're loud and we stay with it, and next thing um, we're up 3 scores going into halftime. That South Carolina team could quit. And
Mm-hmm.
you want to talk about a program changing game. If South Carolina shows up to Columbia, Missouri, and gets beat by 30 points, then all of a sudden their head coach is on the hot seat headed into the rest of the year. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, it's on the fans to help generate the atmosphere, and I think it needs to be said too, Joe, that I think it's clear that atmosphere that was created at LSU and also to an extent Kansas State has started to play a role in the recruiting game also. So
Yeah, we haven't even talked about that recently,
yeah,
but yeah, real quick before we transition off of the South Carolina game, I do want to get your thoughts. What do you think Shane Beamer kicked?
that's a good question. I'm gonna say I feel like cooler is the easy answer, but I don't want to go with the cooler. I'm gonna say he kicked. Um, I'm gonna say he kicked like the tire of a gator. That's good. I'm going with that's what I'm going with. He kicked like
Okay.
you know what I mean, like a
Yeah, like the equipment staff gator
equipment staff
sitting
gator
there.
was sitting there,
Yeah.
and he just gave it a wallop. What do you think? What's your money on?
My money is a pylon, like an end zone pylon,
That
because
could be as he was running off the field.
you don't think about those being heavy,
Ah, but
but
they
they
are.
are it's like solid hard rubber.
And now
They're
they got cameras
designed
in
to
them,
like stay there.
and they got
And so
cameras in them,
and they
so
got
they're
cameras in them,
yeah.
so they're heavy. I've kicked one before. When I was working for Mizzou's football team, uh, I was told, we were practicing on Faroe. They had them all set up. Offensive line was going to do a drill in the corner, and so we needed more space. And the coach told me to get the pylon out of the way, and instead of bending down and throwing it, I just kicked it. And I'm not sure I broke my foot, but I wouldn't be surprised if I did. So that's my guess
I,
is a
my
pylon.
hope, my hope is that he goes full Hugh Freeze, rolls into the suite to call plays from the from the
Hospital
box
bed.
in a hospital bed. That's my hope. I mean, if we
Either Hugh Freeze in the hospital bed in the suite, or Derek Dooley sitting on the sideline with a cane on a stool with
like a
his legs
90-year-old man,
crossed like a
yeah.
weirdo. Um, that is one of my favorite photographs of all time, is Derek Dooley in his orange pants, coaching Tennessee,
In the
sitting on a
chair.
stool with a cane in his hand. But yeah, so uh, hopefully that is a distraction for the team that he broke his foot.
Yes, and that he's throwing players under the bus. That
And
could
then he's throwing
become
players under the bus. Exactly.
that could tear a
Exactly.
team apart real quick for sure. So
yeah. So you kind of mentioned this, but probably do want to mention it while we're talking. But Ryan Wingo, who is at SLU High School, wide receiver, you may have heard of him. He has moved his commitment date up from December 20th to October 25th, which, if my math is correct, is next Wednesday. So I think he is going to be in town this weekend. Is that true, or am I making that up?
I've seen he's gonna be at the game. Yes. So
Okay,
at
so
least
he's
that's
going
what
to
they've
be in
said.
town this weekend. So he's moving his commitment up and visiting us this weekend.
And can immediately start making NIL money.
And can immediately start making NIL money as soon as he commits to us. So if I were a betting man and they would allow me to bet on things like that, I would bet significant money that Ryan Wingo is a Tiger this time next week. What do you think?
That's where my money is, and it's really exciting. You and I talked before the season started, said, oh, we're kind of a little bit behind as far as recruiting goes, and one way to kind of help get us caught up is to start winning football games. We've done that, and now we've got 1 5-star committed, and if things go our way, like you said, if I'm a betting man as well, I'm putting my money on Mizzou. I think at this point it would be a surprise for him not to commit to Mizzou.
Right.
You're looking at 2 5-star players from the state of Missouri committing to the home state school, and that's something I don't think Mizzou's ever had 2 5-star kids recruit to, or commit to Mizzou in the same class. At least not that I'm aware of.
Nope, never. Only ever had one at a time. And
right.
I do think that it's important to also mention that this is not like a class that's just those two and then nobody else. It's gonna be. I don't know if there's a class. Ohio State might have a comparable group of wide receivers, but if we get Wingo, we already have James Madison committed, and then if Jeremiah McClellan flips to us like a lot of people have suspected he will be, that's a heck of a wide receiver class coming in. I don't know how you get much better than that.
Yeah, I agree. 3 of the most talented guys in the country. James Madison, I think we both watched his high school game that happened to be on ESPN one day before kind of the college season started. And he looked like the real deal, obviously, as an 18-year-old.
Catch,
yeah. A lot of talent coming in at wide receiver if you get those 3 guys. I know the coaching staff, they're looking on kind of adding to the offensive line, through the recruiting class, but definitely at the skill position, that wide receiver, and I think we got a pretty good tight end coming too. Continue in that direction, and if that's what we're known for is producing wide receivers and defensive backs, then or I guess defensive linemen, linebackers, whatever. Our defense has been solid all around, but if we can play defense and have people to sling the ball around to, in today's college football game, that's going to set you up for success.
Right. Yeah, and I was talking to my dad about it last night. How easy is it going to be to recruit a good quarterback next year? We already have one committed this year. Aiden Glover looks pretty good. Kind of funny that we had that one kid committed who then got a Nebraska offer and flipped immediately. And then we go out, 2 weeks later and get this kid who's, from what it looks like, is better than the kid we had committed. I think we got a good quarterback, but then how easy is it going to be to go to a 5-star kid next year and be like, you want to throw to, Wingo and McClellan and Josh Manning and James Madison and Brett Norfleet and, just list the guys that are still going to be there. Obviously we only have another year of Burden. So,
right.
But
yeah, they should be able to get a receiver. You know what? Let's pull out all the stops. Let's go to Texas and get the Manning kid who say, hey, if they don't want you,
right.
if they won't play you,
if they're gonna play yours over you, come play for us.
No, yeah, I don't know if that's realistic, but yeah, there's no reason why you don't tell.
You don't know if that's realistic.
Well, probably. You know what? Here's the deal, though: is Wingo clearly probably has a relationship with him because he spent 3 weeks down in Texas over the summer. So
true. True.
But anyway, no, there's no reason why you can't go to a quarterback, one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the next class and say, hey, why would you not want to come play for us? There's no reason why you can't be successful as the quarterback here, especially if our offensive line play continues to improve.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge recruiting point for sure.
Yeah. So again, exciting time to be a Tiger. I think the football program seems to be moving in the right direction, and I think it's clear the basketball program is too. And it's just you're just waiting for the kick in the nuts as a Mizzou fan right now.
Yeah.
But
Hey,
I
you know
think
what?
curses are meant to be broken.
I'm excited to talk. I mean, obviously, we got to get the big victory this weekend. I'm excited to talk about basketball. I think they're going to have a huge chip on their shoulder,
Yeah.
being ranked, I think, 9th in the SEC by the coaches. So they're going to have something to prove too. So
for sure,
great things happening though in Columbia, Missouri, and that's exciting for everybody.
Right, and so South Carolina game. Hopefully we're talking about a win. Doing a review podcast is our next podcast, talking about a homecoming win. But then it is a bye week, so we will probably talk about basketball. Have maybe a complete basketball episode, because that starts, a couple weeks. Mizzou tips off real game, so I think they've had a secret scrimmage already. I saw reports that they were on their way to Chicago last weekend. I don't know. I assume they played Northwestern or Loyola,
Illinois, Chicago, or something.
Or Illinois, Chicago, but I don't really know who they played. I haven't really seen any concrete anything like that. But we'll dig into that and find out and see what we can do, and talk about some basketball. But let's go ahead and wrap it up there. So any final thoughts as we close this one out, Thomas?
How confident are you in making a score prediction?
I'll go 45-17.
Ooh, gosh. Okay. See, this is what makes me nervous. Is we're getting so confident.
No, I'm not. That's not like a confident. That's if we win this game, like if we play like I think we should, Drink's not going to take the pedal off the gas. I don't think him and Beamer get along at all.
They don't. Well, to be fair, no one really likes Beamer, and so I think everybody kind of, if they have the chance, put the pedal to the metal. But I'm not going to be quite that aggressive. I'll say 35-21 is what I'm going with.
Okay. I'd take either one. I don't need to win by 30. I just
win by one as far as much as we care.
Just win just as long as we score more than them. I don't care how much we score. But yeah, so that's it for us. Thanks for listening, and like I said, we'll be back with hopefully a review of the homecoming win. MIZ.
ZOU.